Amiga, do you ever feel caught between two worlds? You cherish your cultural background, but sometimes it clashes with the realities of raising a family in modern America. You might feel pressured to fulfill traditional expectations, yet you crave a life that allows you to be your true, authentic self. If you're a Latina mom nodding your head right now, I see you and I get it. Balanced Motherhood is more than your average Mami coaching program. It's a supportive comunidad designed specifically for you. I understand the unique challenges you face navigating between generations and culturas while forging your own path as a mama. Stop feeling like you have to choose between your roots and your future. Balanced Motherhood empowers you to create a life that celebrates your heritage, embraces your motherhood journey, and prioritizes your own happiness. Spots are limited. Don't miss out on this opportunity to connect with a supportive community and create a more balanced life. Visit the link in the show notes to join the waitlist for the next Balanced Motherhood cohort. I can't wait to meet you. Hola, hola, amiga. Today's episode is all about embracing your new identity as a mommy. Let's be real. Transitioning from me to mommy can be such a wild ride. It can be beautiful, messy, and sometimes downright confusing. To be honest, I struggled a lot with this new identity. I was someone who really prioritized on myself. I had such a strong identity as a professional Latina out there in the workforce. And not only that, but I had this sense of confidence in just being out there, creating a professional network, having the ability to run and to truly enjoy myself, hanging out with friends whenever I wanted to. We would go to bars almost every weekend. We would visit family and we would stay for as long as we wanted porque we didn't have anyone else to take care of. And so when I really reflect on my journey before motherhood and how my transition went when I became a mommy, it was such a huge transition, let me tell y'all. And I became a mom in the midst of the pandemic. My firstborn, Diego, was born in early 2021. And so we've already gone through almost a year of the pandemic. And it was not only exhausting just because you were still under quarantine and all of that, but this other layer of switching identities literally from one day to the next. And so it was such an emotional roller coaster in the very beginning. And even till today, now that we transition into having one child to two, it still is such a journey right now. But even through these different transitional moments of our lives and as mamas, know that you can build specific systems in place so that way you wouldn't feel isolated and recognize your ever-evolving identity. And so for today's episode, we will definitely talk about the emotional roller coaster that it is to become a mommy. But I'm also going to share with you strategies for integrating your old identity into your new identity as a mama. So no te lo pierdas. Welcome to the Viva la Mami podcast. I am your host, Jessica Cuevas. I am a mother of two on a mission to help redefine the meaning of motherhood as a modern Latina mom. Motherhood can be a complex journey, interwoven in two identities that often make us feel ni de aquí ni de allá. Viva la Mami is committed to providing you with knowledge, tools, and support to navigate the challenges and triumphs of motherhood as Latina moms. On the show, we'll be discussing culturally relevant topics that will help inform and empower you in whichever season you are in on your motherhood journey. We'll be joined by Latina moms, experts and professionals who can offer advice, practical tips, relatable stories, and honest conversations. So bring your cafecito as I invite you to be a part of this space as we create comunidad about the exciting and challenging parts of being a mommy. Ahora, vámonos. All right, mamas. So let's talk about this identidad thing. Who were you before your baby arrived? Were you the party animal? Were you the career climber? Well, whoever you were, that's amazing, mujer, because guess what? It is still a part of you. You see, madrehood adds another layer, but it doesn't erase who you were before. Maybe you miss those spontaneous nights out with your amigas or curling up with a good book for hours. It is totally normal that we feel a little lost sometimes from this old identity to this new one as mamas. And honestly, this was something that I had to learn. And I am still learning today as a mom of a toddler and an infant. It was very easy for me to prioritize on myself. It was very easy for me to just tell Alex, hey, I'm going to go on a 30-minute run. I'll come back in a little bit. It was so easy to just have different priorities and not to worry about others. Yes, I still had the responsibility of doing house chores, of doing homework, for example, back then when I was in grad school. And I also recognize that many of us Latinas, we have responsibilities with our families, with our parents, with our siblings, especially if we are in a multi-generational household. And even though we can carry on these different responsibilities, before we are moms, we have more of that flexibility and decision making to say either yes or no, or we can delay it. But now as mamas, we have to put our children first. And that is because it's all about nature versus nurture, right? We are the default parent. And not that I'm saying that we are doing everything to raise a child, because we also depend on our partners or support system, our comunidad. And so considering this, how can we really adapt and accept this new identity? And the first thing that I want to mention and recognize that it is okay to grieve your old identity. And I've said this so many times, most recently on the past couple of episodes, I've mentioned that it is okay to grieve your old identity. It is okay to reflect on who you were. And now that we are in this new sort of chapter of our lives, we should also recognize that it is okay if we wish we had that life before. And the reason why I'm normalizing this or trying to normalize this is because oftentimes we don't talk about it in our comunidad. We were taught to just be complacent. We were taught to just be happy the way it is and accept the fact that we are moms. And not that I'm saying that it's a horrible thing to be a mom, because clearly I love being a mom, but there are definitely moments where I knew I had it way easier before I became a mom. And so we've all been there. We've all felt that. And I just want to validate your feelings as well. It is okay if you have these feelings. It is okay if you have these thoughts, because that's just who we are. We are human, and we shouldn't ignore and have this sort of toxic positivity in our minds about, well, everything's going to be fine because I'm a mom. No, it is always okay to take a couple steps back. It is always okay to remove yourself, literally, figuratively. It is okay to step away and try to take a deep breath and just recognize that specific moment whenever you're going through stressful situations. And whenever you're ready, you can come back on mom mode. And so I understand that it is such an overwhelming, hell of a roller coaster ride when we are going through all of these emotions because we are probably sleep deprived. We are probably upset because our partner didn't do something that we asked for. There's just so many emotions in this whole ride, especially when we have little ones, when we have a newborn, or even like when our kids are little. But also, I'm pretty sure that many mamas of older kids go through these emotions as well. And so I also want you to recognize that you are not alone. It is okay to not have it all together. It is okay to feel that at that moment you are upset. And I want you to know that it is totally normal. Before we were moms, we had this clear identity that we held, whether if it was identifying as a specific career woman or identifying based off of your passions or your hobbies, or identifying yourself as just a daughter of immigrants. All of us had this specific identity before our bebés were born. The same way as how our identity evolves, it will definitely evolve with motherhood as well. Know that the pre-mommy version of yourself still is with you. It is within you. And now we're adding in this extra layer of our identity that we never had before. And so now it's up to us to kind of redefine our own journey and decide, what do I want to do out of this identity? Do I want to be the same kind of mom that I was taught, that I was modeled after? Or do I kind of want to add a little bit of this and a little bit of that? Do I want to try new things that I'm even daring myself to do? Even though we see so many things out on social media, there's so many books out there about parenting and, different methods about this and this and that. And that in itself can be very overwhelming, trust me. But there is no specific rule book on how to be a mom. I also want to acknowledge that there are a lot of cultural expectations around motherhood. I understand that we get so much pressure on being a specific mama, but understand that it is so important to set boundaries. It is very important for our own mental health and the opportunity to parent and mother the way that we want to. And so even though you can add a little blend of your cultura, you can also add it with your own vision of what motherhood should be based on what you want it to be. So like one little example that I can share with you. When we were transitioning Diego, our first, into solids, my family freaked the hell out when Alex and I decided to do baby-led weaning. For those of you who do not know what baby-led weaning is, it is essentially introducing solids the way that they appear. Obviously, this food is appropriate based on the age of the child. So if it is for 6 months, it is food that is about the size of your finger, your pointer finger, and as thick as 2 fingers together. Okay, so it's basically for them to grab. My parents freaked the hell out when they were like, "Oh, ¿le vas a dar ese pedazo de brócoli?" And I'm like, yeah, we're doing baby-led weaning. And they were like, what? He's going to choke. And I'm like, no, he's not. We've done research. We're not going to go with purees because we want him to explore the food. We want him to explore the textures. And we base it off of evidence-based information. And my mom was like, I know, pero se va a ahogar. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's probably going to gag. And to be honest, he might gag in front of your face. And then so I had to teach her and show her like, okay, this is the process. This is how it looks like. This is what we're supposed to do if in case he does gag. And so even though traditionally we've been fed just like purees, I mean, that's how I was fed. But Alex and I both agreed on a specific model that was different than the traditional way of like feeding a baby based on how my family fed us. And so in the beginning, I was kind of afraid to tell my family like, hey, we decided to feed our baby this certain way. And in a way, I felt like I was like judge just because I'm not following suit to like even feeding my baby like solids. But I'm like, no, this is our parenting journey. We both came into agreement. And so as long as my partner and I agreed on how we wanted to feed him, like it was okay. And it's totally fine if people are like, oh my gosh, like they're feeding their baby this way. Like at the end of the day, you're going to get someone que te va a criticar, right? Like we all know this. This is whenever we would rebel or dress up a certain way when we were teenagers, like everyone's going to talk crap, right? And so don't assume that when you are a mom, you should mother the way that you were modeled after just para complacer. You need to also be brave and have the courage to be your true authentic self in your own version of motherhood. And sometimes we even shame ourselves and wishing that we would have mothered a certain way. But guess what, mama? You can always shift your way of mothering too. You can always change the way that you parent if you want to. There's no specific set definition of what motherhood should be or should look like. And so if you think that you want to parent a certain way because you didn't for your first child, or let's say your child is a teenager now and you parented them differently, well, guess what? You can always change that. We are human beings. We are ever evolving. And that should also be tied with our identity as well. Our identity is ever evolving. Give yourself some self-love and self-compassion and acknowledge the feelings that you're currently going through. If you feel that the way that you present yourself in front of your child is wrong because you have that intuitive feeling, change it. It is totally okay. So, how do we hold onto that pre-mama spark? And really, it's all about finding those little pockets of you, even amidst the chaos of motherhood. Maybe it's taking a quick meditation session before the kids wake up, or have a phone call with una amiga as you are folding laundry, or after you dropped off the kids to school, whatever it is. Just so you know, I did share a couple strategies on how to reconnect your passions on episode 59. So make sure to listen to that episode because I share some really great strategies. And these ideas can help you carve out some me time, even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. This journey is hella hard. I definitely recognize that. We all know that we all go through the struggle. We have to navigate emotions, but we also have to navigate our own. We have to make sure that our kids are fed, but we also have to feed ourselves to survive. And so the same way that we want our children to thrive and be the best version of themselves, we should also think about that as well. Again, our cultura never taught us to do that. We just saw our moms give in so much, and we saw them work so hard, not just at home, but at their jobs or their multiple jobs as well. We saw them hustle every single day. And our moms perhaps didn't even have the time to connect with their old passions, or perhaps were raised without even knowing about hobbies or passions or self-care or anything like that. And so clearly, if we don't want to continue on with that cycle of not really focusing on ourselves, how do we really want our children to be? How are we creating this model after our kids if we don't take care of ourselves? And trust me, it is really hard. It is so hard. I actually had a conversation with my mom recently over the phone, and she's like, you're sharing a lot about people taking care of themselves. And how about you? And I'm like, I know, Mom. I know. And I really took that as a way like, okay, I should also take a couple steps back. And so to leave you off on this episode, I want to share a couple mantras or affirmations that are specifically designed to help you embrace your evolving identity. The first one is, está bien no tenerlo todo bajo control todo el tiempo. It's okay not to have it all together all the time. The second one is, mi identidad no me desaparece con la maternidad. My identity doesn't disappear with motherhood. So really take these two mantras in, reflect on that, write it down, put it on a post-it note in front of a mirror or put it on your phone, whatever it is. I want to encourage you to create your own personal mantra that truly resonates with yourself. Once you write your mantras down, feel free to share them to me on DMs on Instagram. I would be so happy to read your mantras. That way I can also perhaps utilize them as well, because you never know, we're probably going through the same struggles. If you are still feeling lost or not really connected with your old identity and new identity, you are not alone. And maybe this is an opportunity for you to consider my Balanced Madrehood coaching program. This is a 3-month coaching program designed specifically for you as a Latina mama who is trying to find balance between your identity as a Latina. We all know that we have a very unique identity where we often are proud of our cultural roots. But as we become mamas, we also want to define motherhood differently than the way that we were taught or the way that we've seen it growing up. And so this is an opportunity for you to not just figure out different strategies on how you can bring your passions back, connect with yourself, and really have this sense of identity in combination with being a mama, but also it will allow you to build comunidad with other mamas. And that is my intention, for us to really talk and compartir and just to share and elevate ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves and as mamas. And so I welcome you to visit my website and consider joining the waitlist. You can visit my website, which is www.vivalamami.com/balanced-madrehood. That is balanced with a D at the end, -madrehood. And I'm also going to share the link in the show notes if you want to easily click on the link. But I would really encourage you or any mama that you may know who is struggling right now with their identity to be a part of this program. Doors will officially open in April. And so you're the first listeners to know when doors will open to purchase this coaching program. And spots are very, very limited because I will be having a small cohort. So that way we can have intimate conversations about the struggles and successes about madrehood. And so I hope you can consider that. But either way, DMV, if you have any questions or want to know more about the program, I'm more than happy to have a quick one-on-one call with you to learn a little bit more. And that way I can answer your questions. All right, mamas. Well, that is it for today. And remember that I am your mommy advocate who is all for helping you redefine your own version of motherhood. All right, nos vemos in the next episode. Mujer, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to the Viva la Mami podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a favor and follow the podcast and leave a rating and review? Hitting that follow button and reviewing my show will allow other mommies like you find this podcast. Your review will also tell me if you enjoy the show, so I would truly appreciate your thoughts. Don't forget, please share this podcast con tus amigas. Also, make sure to follow me at Viva la Mami on Instagram or visit vivalamami.com.
Please note the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. Okay, mujer, thank you for joining y nos vemos in the next episode.